So if you're working on building your YouTube channel, what happens when you sit down in front of the camera? Is it, shoot, what was I going to say? And then you completely forget everything that was in your head before you actually hit record. Or do you feel like you need to become a professional newscaster who, newscasters aren't like that anymore, thankfully. But you feel like you have to bring on this entire persona that, somehow impresses your viewers just because you're talking like this. Or, you know what I'm going to say about that one, that you become that deer in the headlights of, I can't do this. Look, there's a lot of things that can happen when we turn on a camera, and some of them aren't good. So let's talk about what they might be, and let's talk about what we can do to press through and improve what we're presenting when we turn on that camera, because I think there's some steps we can do and some little bit of practice that can get us to a point where we're just communicating better. Hey, I'm Diane. I'm 55. I'm a proud Gen Xer, and I've started this channel to help my fellow Gen Xers and early boomers to feel more confident in pursuing ways to have a greater influence in the world and earn more income from what we already know. And I think one of the best ways to do that is with a YouTube channel. All right, so it's obvious that kind of just talking to a camera is weird. And it might even be weird for those of us that are a little older, because this is not in our natural environment nearly as much as it is for some of the, obviously, the Gen Z and millennials, that this is much more of a normal thing for. So I'm just sitting here in my home office by myself, talking to the back of my iPhone, and thinking that, yeah, this is not something that's kind of a normal thing to do. But if you want to succeed on YouTube, I think we just have to just grow in comfort level and think that, we are capable of being able to express things and to have a comfortable persona as we're doing that and we're sharing on YouTube. So I've got 4 tips here that I think can be pretty helpful as you want to grow and improve in doing that. It's not an overwhelming process, but hey, we're going to start with the most obvious one. Look, you just have to practice. And the best thing about it is that you can sit and practice making videos and no one in the world ever has to see them except for you. They're just ones that you, like say, you have an extra 10 minutes and you have a topic that, maybe this is going to be what ends up on your YouTube, or maybe it's just something that you've been thinking about. And in those 10 minutes, you put your phone on something that you can hit record on and just get used to kind of just, having that topic and talking about it in a way that feels comfortable to you primarily, because I think that's the best place to start. You get used to looking at the lens. You get used to, what sort of hand movements you feel comfortable making, not them, but, what is more conversational. And you just get used to just feeling like, okay, this isn't so weird. I can do this. So you can do that and make as many videos as you want, but my friend, at some point, if you want to start that channel, you're going to have to post some. And I'm going to just clue you in here that the first, I don't know, let's give it a number. Let's say the first 10 videos are going to be a little cringy. And when you get further down the line and you look back at them, you're like, ugh, that's awful. But, you got started. So make the ones that no one ever has to see and kind of get your game together on it and practice with that. And then get to the point where you just realize, okay, I got to start at some point and I'm going to do that. I'm going to make some videos that I'm not going to love, but they're the ones that get me started, and they're the ones that start getting your audience together, and the ones that make you feel confident that you can talk about this topic and get your channel rolling. So practice and get to that point and just realize you're starting and you're growing. So a tip number 2, I think we need to make an important differentiation. Is confidence on screen what we're going for? I would say no. I would say comfort when recording is really what your goal is. So with your video, your viewer, something about the title, something about the thumbnail made them click play. And so in those first few seconds in their mind, they're deciding, do I want to keep watching or scroll up? And in those first 30 seconds, you're on camera. You are confident and you're, kind of scaring them off because you are so emphatic about what you're saying. Or are you just kind of talking like this and your viewer kind of feels like, I'm just going to step away slowly? Neither one of those situations are good. So let's shoot for what we can do to increase our comfort level in recording. I think maybe the biggest thing that can help is to picture you're talking to one person, not a crowd. Whatever your follower count, whatever it is, whether it's 10 or 10,000, don't think about those numbers, but think about one person. Maybe you're going to feel more comfortable with that being a friend or a loved one that you're kind of picturing rather than just the lens that you're looking at. Or maybe it's a follower who consistently comments and you feel like they're really with you on your videos and you're thinking, okay, I want to say something that's going to help them. So, and in speaking of that, I think that's possibly the most important thing to kind of develop that normal comfort level is the idea that what you're sharing in your video is something that can actually help the person who is watching it. Whether it's education or inspiration or entertainment even, any of those things of what you're sharing can help that person level up. So if you have that mindset going into it, I think that makes it feel more normal that, okay, I can feel confident because I think this is really going to benefit my viewer. And that gives you the confidence level that makes them feel like, okay, you've got enough credibility to make me think that you know what you're talking about, but not that scary overconfidence that makes them think, no. So how do we achieve that comfort level? Practice, like we talked about. You want to have just the comfortable feeling that when you're looking at a camera that it's not this awful experience for you and you hate every minute of it, but the practice has helped you kind of get over that somewhat. I think it's also important you have somewhat of an idea of what you're going to say when you sit down so you're not constantly fumbling for words, and absolutely keeping in mind that you're adding value to your viewer by what you're sharing. And honestly, those of us in the over 40 crowd, I think that might come a little bit more easily to just by virtue of life experience. Tip number 3, connecting on camera is honestly just like it is when connecting in person. You just got to keep the normal things in mind. Okay, I know some people might feel this to be difficult in conversation, but you just have to make normal eye contact. Now, I don't think it's necessary for you to talk and stare at the lens in such a way that the person feels like you're boring into their soul. I feel like when I'm talking, I maybe look away from the camera more than a lot of YouTubers do because it just kind of helps me to think and what I'm getting to with my words. If you were standing in conversation and doing that boring into your soul thing, I think the person would feel uncomfortable. So have it just be natural that you look away when you kind of just want to get a thought and then you look back into the camera, but you don't give yourself the leeway that you're constantly just looking everywhere else except to the camera because sometimes and somehow that makes you feel more comfortable. That's not going to work either. And especially if you're using a front-facing camera on your phone, if you're recording like that, don't be tempted just to watch yourself all the time. I use the back-facing camera because I think the lens is better, but I think it's also less of a distraction that I don't have to see that while I'm recording. Now, also be conscious of your speaking speed too. You don't want to be talking 500 miles a minute just because you're very nervous. You want to have that normal conversational tone, just like you'd be speaking to a person if you were in an actual conversation. However, again, we have to find that magic middle ground because if you really want to make your point and you feel like speaking so slowly does that, it's just going to creep the person out. And we don't want to do that. And speaking of creepy, a monotone is not your friend. Some people might think that just speaking in this very normal level expresses a level of calm that will help the viewer to feel nice and relaxed as they're watching. Nope, honestly, it just expresses, again, creepy. And we don't need to do that. Just have the normal inflections with your voice and not feel like you have to rein it in so much. And just have the normal expressiveness. It's how conversations flow. So here's my 4th and final tip. Thanks for sticking with me. You have 2 great gifts in making videos that you don't get in normal life. Number 1, you can record in short segments so you don't have to think of everything before you get started and make sure you hit this entire list of what you wanted to say. And number 2, you can edit. So when I record my videos, I do them in short segments at a time. Before I start, I generally write out an outline that covers what I want to get to, and then in some parts I'll add some additional notes just so there's definitely things that I don't forget that I think are going to be important to say. So in putting all those short segments together, I can do that at the end with editing, and it creates a pretty normal flow in the video. But it helps me not to have to keep everything in mind as I'm going and feel like, oh man, if I screw up, I have to start all over again because I didn't say this one thing. Having segments at a time just kind of helps me to keep my thoughts in a more cohesive manner, and I can say on that subject, and then I can hit pause, and I can look at my notes, and I can go back to it, freshly remembering what I want to say in the next segment. I would absolutely recommend doing it that way. Seems a lot less overwhelming. So even with those shorter segments, if you stumble over some words, you can edit your video. Now, I know that I've heard from several of my followers that editing can kind of be the sticking point in putting videos together because it just seems so complicated. As with all of my video making technique, I keep things simple. I just use CapCut. It's an app on my phone to be able to edit my videos, and I did put together a video on my basic editing techniques by using CapCut. So if that's something that's kind of, I don't know how to edit, I encourage you to watch through that and just see that it is actually pretty simple. And things that you stumble over, there are ways that you can fix it, and editing just kind of makes that whole presentation a lot less pressure-filled because you can fix what you screw up. So these tips help you feel like you can grow in your comfort level as you're recording on your camera. I hope so. You just have to give yourself room to grow and improve and course correct as you go. You watch those practice videos and you're like, I don't like that. And the next one you do, you fix it. And you take one of those at a time and fix one of those things at a time and just gradually improve. And editing is a beautiful thing. You can take out what you really screw up and you can record and fix it. And, it's not a once and done thing. Plus, you absolutely have the benefit of knowing that what you're sharing is going to be something that helps your viewer. And I think just that impetus alone helps you feel more comfortable because you feel like what you're doing is really actually giving value. So I feel like I learned a ton as I've started making these videos much more consistently and posting. And I know there's definitely things that I still want to grow in, but I'm improving as I go and I'm learning as I go. And I just want to give you that grace to do that too. And if you might still be struggling on ideas of what to talk about while you're thinking about how you want to say it, I encourage you to watch this video here on how to generate content ideas. Have some tips just to make it not so tough of a process of thinking of what you actually want to make your video about. I think that's a great next one for you to watch.